to BCIC for ensuring and organizing these events. Now, let me hand it over to Mr. Rakesh for the introduction and then taking over the session. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Niranjan. Good afternoon, Mr. Ashwani and Patil here. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Ashwani for sparing his valuable time to be here at the BCIC office for this event. It's my privilege to introduce Mr. Ashwani. In fact, I am associated with Boeing for the last 6 years now. And, one of the quickest way we got into Boeing was through Mr. Ashwani. So, Mr. Ashwani is Senior Director of Supply Chain Management for Boeing in India, based in Bangalore. He is responsible for managing supply chain activities for in-country enterprise requirements, in specific Boeing commercial, defense, and global services. Mr. Ashwani leads a multifunctional team that includes global field operations, supplier development, and diversity, BDS, BDA, and BGS sustainment supply chain. India procurement, COE, and logistics also is under him. India supply chain capabilities are closely aligned with all elements of SCOR. Prior to joining Boeing, Mr. Ashwani held key leadership roles at GE in supply chain, program management, and quality in support of various GE units, including GE Power, Oil and Gas, and Transportation. His responsibilities covered international regions such as Asia, Europe, and Africa. In his last role at GE, Mr. Ashwani was the sourcing leader for GE Transportation and based in South Africa, where he managed the supply chain of a $700 million locomotive tender. Mr. Ashwani began his career with Larsen & Toubro in Mumbai, where he held positions of increasing responsibility in manufacturing and production planning. Mr. Ashwani holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and a master's in finance management from NMIMS, Mumbai, and is currently a member of AMCHAM Manufacturing Committee in India. Ashwani has represented his school in table tennis and badminton. He loves watching movies and also enjoys spending time with his wife, Sangeeta, and son, Aryan. Apart from which is not there in this, I would also like to tell that Mr. Ashwani is an expert in GD&T and also a leader in Lean Six Sigma. Thank you. And now over to Mr. Ashwani.
I will take a moment to, of course, welcome.
You have it there as well.
Ashwani, welcome once again.
Yeah.
Everybody knows he is a veteran in India, and almost anybody doing anything in aerospace in India knows Ashwani. I have brought two guests along with me. I just wanted to introduce them to you. He is Mr. Barmate. Actually, all three of us are from XHL. Mr. Barmate has been into manufacturing of fixed wing aircraft, rotary wing aircraft, and aero engine in HL in many divisions of HL. So we thought we will have a little interaction once we get some time.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashok Kumar Sood, he is expert in testing in India. So his life has been devoted to aircraft testing. And of course, he was head of design in HAL in Nasik division, and most of the time in. And he is associated directly or indirectly with Boeing.
I work as a consultant for HCL Technologies, who are executing some of the consultant.
So good, we'll have a good interaction. Sure. And I think you have a lot of advanced questions, comments. So welcome all the participants once again. Over to you, Ashwani.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me on the people who are on the WebEx or the link there?
Can somebody say confirm?
Confirm that. Can you hear Ashwani?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So first, many thanks to all of you for having me over. It's the best time to be in the aerospace and defense industry. So I thought we'll make it more interactive. So please feel free to ask questions. The topic given to me is the challenges post-COVID in aerospace and defense. And I think, why COVID? Why just COVID? Okay, I would expand the definition by saying, let's talk about challenges post three things that have happened. One is COVID, other is the geopolitical disturbance across the globe, and third, a little more awareness that quality is very important. And more than anybody else, Boeing has gone through that experience over the last 3-4 years. You have heard about what happened with 737 MAX. So multiple challenges. And what you hear today is that the supply chain drives most of the roadblocks that we have. In fact, when I go to some of the people in and outside of India and say I'm from supply chain, they said, oh, we are sorry. I mean, you must be going through a lot of issues. But I have reasons to believe, and there are two elements, what is happening from supply chain in India and what is happening globally. So globally, it is true that there is a turmoil which will take some time to recover, possibly 1.5 years more, maybe more time. And I'll explain what that issue is. But can anybody on the phone, and in the spirit of being more interactive, other than Rakesh here, because he will probably know this, can anybody guess what is our on-time delivery from the Boeing suppliers to Boeing? We export 99.99% of the parts we buy from India. Can anybody make a guess what is going to be our on-time delivery from India? Anybody on the phone?
99%. Got one answer, 99.
Who's that? The person has to identify himself, 99%.
That is Murali Krishna.
Murali Krishna.
He is from
Murali Krishna from
Toyota person.
Okay. I mean, other guesses, because see, in context of the subject, I mean, if it was that good, then people would not be talking about challenges. With that clue, what is our on-time delivery?
60%.
60%. Okay. Any other guess on the phone?
about, I don't know, maybe I may sound skeptical, but about 45 to 50%.
45, so it's going down. Any last takers on the phone?
One more chance. More round of bidding.
95.
95, okay.
Okay. So we are operating at 99.92%.
Okay.
And the reason this is important is because India is possibly the only region in the world that has not impacted our production line. Okay. And in context of the subject that we're talking about, yes, we have gone through the challenges, but we figured out a way to manage to deliver even in the pandemic period. And this delivery performance was the same even in the pandemic period, in the 3-year period that we have. So first, let's talk about the global challenges. So what has happened is let's make it interactive. What do you think is driving the supply chain issues across the globe? Any guesses? What is driving the supply chain challenges? And I'll define the problem statement at a high level. There is more demand, but the supply, we're not able to supply. So somebody says capacity. Okay. What else?
Yes.
Raw materials. What else? Shortage. Okay. What else?
Resources.
Labor,
Resources.
skilled manpower.
Skilled manpower. So what has happened is in the pandemic period, when the demand tanked, a lot of corporates got rid of the skilled manpower. Okay. Now the rates are coming back again. So the bigger problem is the skilled manpower. If you induct somebody today, you'll take some time to train them. and qualify them. In the aerospace world, you don't put them on the job from day one. The raw material, because of the Ukraine or Russia issue, has become a problem. That's another thing. So the cycle time to get the raw material is maybe up to 1 year, 1.5 years. The third element, which is hidden under the carpet, the bigger problem of all is the sub-tier supply chain. So what you'll hear in the market is the big names who are not able to deliver. But if you go deeper into it, you'll see that there are the smaller sub-tiers who are the constraint in the overall supply chain world. And that may be because of raw material in turn. So unless you go deeper into each of the system, you won't be able to figure out where the issue is. So to get the whole supply chain back on track, you have to control everything. Because one part can cause shortage and problem in delivering the parts. So we are on the path to recovery. And I can speak for Boeing. We are increasing the rates every 3 or 4 months in 737. There are plenty of orders. We're flooded with 737 MAX orders, right? But we have to deliver now. And we are struggling to keep the pace with the demand. But we think over the next 1.5 years, we will recover. Now, this is the global scenario. Now, what is happening on the India side? Now, we are about $1 billion in sourcing every year. Somebody can argue where is 1 billion and where is like 30-40 billion across the globe. It's still very small to that extent, but we still have to deliver. So we figured out that it's going to be a mess in the pandemic. So number one, we had to protect ourselves from the shutdowns or the lockdowns. So we worked with the government of Karnataka to define aerospace and defense as essential services. And that, instead of working industry by industry, we just said, hey, let's kill this in one go. So aerospace and defense became essential services, so the factories were open. The second was raw material coming in from the US, most of it is imported. And then you have to deliver the finished goods back to US. The other problem was the logistics industry was in a complete mess. Because from ocean to aircraft, they were busy carrying the healthcare equipment in the pandemic. So how do you get the priority? If you don't have priority, how do you ship the parts? So if you were in my place, what would you do? You have problems in bringing the raw material in. You have problem in the logistic industry sending it back. You have problem of people not showing up in the factory. But you still have to deliver. What would you do if you were in my place? And I'm telling you, we delivered almost 100% on time. But how would you do that? Any thoughts?
Would Boeing not have its own aircraft to?
No, we don't do that. And having Antonovs and those kind of things are for very big parts, not for. But we did something. So what would you do? Let's have a dialogue on this. Charter?
Local sites.
Surplus.
Yeah. Get some of the parts done where the materials are sourced. And basically then look at integration assembly at some point where both of them meet. Maybe if you basically get some materials at one place, you get the parts done there. I don't know. I am just guessing here because of the skill power man. Yeah. You have the right resources to do that or not, may not be known. But these are some thoughts.
Okay, let's go back to basic. Okay, the world has evolved and it moved, and this is very this is coming out of experience. I mean, there will be difference of opinion on this one. Historically, people used to have inventory. Then it became just in time. Which is better?
Just in time.
Just in time.
Everybody wants just in time.
Inventory.
Now, have you heard about supply chain resilience?
Yeah.
What is the meaning of supply chain resilience?
How it can respond to disruptions
So there are two elements.
Buffers, keeping buffer.
How robust is the system?
One is how can you withstand the disruptions or the shocks? And then there will be some disturbance for sure. How quickly can you recover? That is called supply chain resilience. So if you go back to the books, and if you go back to supply chain experts, there is an argument today, should we go back to the old model of inventory or not? Okay. And if you are in an industry like us, then inventory becomes a very important tool for managing the production system. Okay. Just in time thing goes away because the disruption cost more than the inventory cost. So one, we started pulling inventory at supplier's place. And then we worked with our business back saying that we suspect there'll be a problem here. Can we ship early? So we started shipping early, anticipating there could be a problem. Second, on the logistics side, we started mapping what is the actual time taken to take the part versus the standard time. So it was going from the standard 30 to 45 days to 120 days. So if you have this wide a variation, that it'll take about 120 days, how do you manage that? So we started building the inefficiency in our planning cycle. Keep tracking, how much time it takes. We have logistics people, so we figured out charter flights, not as in full plane charter, but there were some charter flights which are going, we found some space there. We did some routing. We have a lot of parts in defense that can only go in the US flag vessel, right? You can't do much about that, So we took actions on the logistics. And in some of the supplier places where we had single source in India, like if you shut India, the whole production line is shut. So suppliers created a kind of a dormitory kind of a thing in their place where they had several cots and everything else. In case something happens, they can have the people stay there. And there were multiple other actions we took. I was connected with my team every day on the WebEx, and we felt as if we are talking to each other, sitting next to each other. So we were so very well connected, and we anticipated issues and then solve the problem. So if you are able to plan well, the issue with the supply base is they will tell you why they can't deliver. Oh, there was a shutdown or the material did not come in. If we know that is going to happen, either you fix the problem or you plan for inefficiency till the time you fix the problem. So that was the main reason why we were successful in India. Okay. So now moving forward, and then we'll open it up for questions. I believe this is the best time to be in the supply chain. Why? Number one, there are problems across the globe. So in Boeing, there is a recognition that India should not be used for labor arbitrage. Okay. So in 2010-15 timeline, people used to talk offset. In Boeing, when I came, I changed that saying, hey, there's nothing like offset. Offset is like, do something temporarily and then go back. So you should be in India for value and then offset will happen. So in my supply chain, and Rakesh will know, I've never ever talked about offset. Never. That is the biggest problem you could have in supply chain by talking offset. So then you started getting orders here because you started showing value, which was the cost. What pandemic has done, what COVID has done, and this is what the subject is. Pandemic has taught us cost is secondary now. What is most important is supply chain resilience. So wherever we had single sources, we are going to dual sources, except for areas where the investment is very high. We have single sources in India where we got to give a solution to the problem. We are taking care of all the single point of failures over here. The most important thing in making supply chain decisions are stability, resilience. Of course, I'm assuming quality and safety is the number one anyways. Okay. So resilience, stability, production support, and then comes the cost. Now we had about 20 leaders in India last week. They're the leaders who will be the next CEOs and so forth. They have gone back convinced that India should not be even used for just the low-cost labor. And I feel very bad when somebody says, let's go to India because labor is cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? So what is happening is people are coming to India for value. What is value? If cost, quality, delivery is given, what is value? Anybody on the phone?
Innovation, efficiency, bringing in efficiency,
Innovation, efficiency,
bringing in new processes that could reduce your
new processes. Yeah. Anybody?
design.
Design. What else?
For which customer pays.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear
For
you.
which the customer pays.
Customer pays. Okay. Anybody else? What's value proposition?
Many things, better information, prediction, better prediction.
Yep.
Those kinds, other than price or cost.
Delivering beyond the set expectations.
Okay. I'll also tell you one thing. I have 200 people in supply chain in India in my team. How many people do you think would be covering the parts that go from suppliers? Like we manage suppliers
From Boeing.
from Boeing. Yeah, Boeing India, my supply chain team.
Maybe it doesn't.
50.
50.
But what are the remaining 150 doing?
No, I couldn't get your question. 200 people are
So I have a team of 200 people.
okay.
I have 300 suppliers. The 50 people look after these 300 suppliers.
Hmm.
What are 150 people doing? The remaining 150.
Value propositions.
System
I think
design.
that looking at suppliers and then understanding what else they could do in terms of
So,
more value from this.
and this is something which is not known very widely in the industry. Okay, only very few people know what happens. So over the last 2 years, we started pulling some jobs that were earlier getting done in the US. Okay, for example, I have a logistics team that just doesn't handle shipments out of India, but we're handling shipments across the globe. France, Austria, Italy, Morocco, and we are showing them how to route shipments in Europe. Okay.
Also manage inventory.
Then we have a team that is managing $1 billion plus inventory for BCA. We have a team that is managing 3,000 suppliers outside of India for a global services business. We have a team that is managing the global tooling, 725,000 tooling, which are owned by Boeing outside of India.
Yeah.
Okay. We are doing the demand and supply planning. Okay. We are doing the global sustainability, the ESG piece, environment, sustainability governance, that is being done out of India. Okay. What else am I missing? His team is doing strategic sourcing. They're issuing the RFPs now out of India. Okay. So this thing, why would somebody bring this to India? Why would somebody do all this logistics and demand planning here? There is a recognition that Indians can add a lot of value. So back to the value proposition. Our sell is technology. Okay, what is technology? I'll explain that. Our sell is innovation. Our sell is performance, stability. Okay. Our sell is design. I mean, to your point, now design, a lot of people can do, but design with possibly a better technology. Okay. This becomes your value proposition. So if you're strong in design, if you're performing well, We do more structures, wire harnesses today. So we just went through a very elaborate strategy exercise. And now I'll be looking for suppliers who will do systems, which is design and manufacture electronic parts and so forth. If you go to our joint venture at Tata's, how many people have heard about FOD, foreign object debris? That is a huge problem across the globe. Now, Tata makes the full Apache fuselage in our joint venture. How do you pick the foreign object inside that bigger helicopter body? How will you do that?
Have some fixtures and rotate and see that.
Oh, it could be as small as a hair. If a hair piece is a debris, foreign object. Okay, a micron or a few microns metal chip is a foreign object. How do you trace that? I mean, imagine this room. This is like this is as big as Apache fuselage. So what they've implemented is something called machine learning. Okay. They take a camera and they just go around and the camera is taught what is debris. So we are possibly the only, or very few regions in the world who have implemented machine learning. A lot of people would not know a lot of work that we do involves robotics. Again, if you go to our joint venture, the vertical fin is getting done by robots. In the machine shop, our suppliers have implemented robo. Our suppliers have implemented virtual reality to train people on processes like painting and so forth. Okay. Our suppliers are challenging the current design and making some improvements in that. Which other country will provide this level of value? Now, the downside is that every supplier says, I can do everything, including a friend Rakesh, right? But that's where India has to be careful because we end up giving a very wrong impression that we can do everything.
Yeah.
So the future of aerospace is going to be driven by supply chain. And I believe India will have a very big role to play in that. And that will not be driven by the cheap labor. That will be driven by the value that we have. Okay. So I'll stop here and see if there are any questions in the room or on the phone. Let's make it interactive. So let's shoot questions.
Yeah, you can shoot. In the meantime, I can begin with something. I think Chandrapauli, are you shooting a question?
I can shoot a question, not an issue.
Okay, please.
But I cannot shoot it at my good friend, Mr. Bhargava. So I just thought I will ask the very familiar question that the challenges of the financial gestation period for aerospace industry, about which we have spoken many forums, many rounds. The policies for the Indian entrepreneur to switch from automobile industry to aerospace industry is still a huge bottleneck. I'm a little out of touch with what's going on in that area, but kindly enlighten us on that issue, sir. How to bring in more entrepreneurs into the technology called aeronautical industry by making the financial issue eased out. Thank you, sir.
So first, there are a lot of success stories, people moving from automotive to aerospace. In fact, it started with simple things like machining, which is easy to transfer from automotive to aerospace, but we are transitioning to things like hydraulics, actuation, and so forth to that extent. I mean, it's very complex. See, in my view, it just boils down to the value proposition. Okay, I'll give you an example of Russell, Texas. I don't know if they're on the phone. We started them when they were selling tea and kebabs. They had nothing. Okay, and our competition went there after 5 years when we developed them, and they got there after Russell won the Supplier of the Year with us, right? So which means, and again, I want to make it clear that some of the OEMs go to suppliers when they're fully ready. Now, the difference is, and this goes back to your aerospace thing. We don't necessarily look at whether they have aerospace experience or not. In my mind, 50% is approach, because what makes a difference in my mind is the leadership of a supplier, because there will be problems when you execute the jobs. There'll be problems, and suppliers we can figure out. I mean, we have been seasoned enough to figure out whether they'll look at this as an opportunity or they'll support when there is a problem. So there are a lot of suppliers who are coming up with a proper attitude and mindset moving into aerospace. All they need to do is worry about the value proposition, because you also have to think through, we're a global supply chain group. If we are to bring some work here at a new supplier, there has to be a reason for doing that. And not because it's somebody in India or that. So what we've done with some suppliers, we have created the need, there has to be a need to get the suppliers inducted. Okay. So one good way of doing it is, instead of becoming a tier 1 to Boeing, become the tier 2 first. So we've introduced our suppliers to our global tier 1s, saying that, these people could be a good option. And once you develop, they have multiple cases. Sim tools, I don't know if you know Sim tools.
Yep.
Great example of being a tier 2 supplier. Now they are one of the big tier 1 suppliers, 100% on quality, 100% on delivery, and they're growing with us. So if you focus on those areas and be open to being a tier 2, then I think it's all doable, in my opinion.
But the question was different, sir. I'm talking about the gestation period, which suffers a huge financial losses. Unlike the other industries where they talk about 3-year return on payback period, here I believe it's because of the approval process and other things, as you are well aware of, it takes minimum 5 years to even to see a cash profitability, which discourages entrepreneurs to transit to this industry.
Yeah. So see, again, that just goes back to how you manage your business. If you're starting something, this is what I'm saying. I think there are different models. One could be a JV with one of the tier 1 vendors. Okay, that takes care of, you get started sooner than what it is. But there is going to be a cost of getting into the business. Okay, I don't think the customers will fund that. Customers will not have the appetite to say that, hey, we'll give you some funding upfront, and because you don't even know whether they'll be able to succeed in doing so, right? So that's the cost of starting a business, in my opinion. And if your question is how can Boeing help, unless there is
No, it's not a question of the customer himself funding. No, I know there are models where you've done that in the country, but the point I'm saying is, vis-a-vis other sectors, the financial gestation in this sector is much, much longer, is what all my aerospace friends say when they pull out and go back to their original businesses.
Yeah. So I have not seen too many examples where people are getting into aerospace with a 5-year gestation period. It doesn't make a business case. Okay. Where we have seen people getting into the aerospace is where the returns is within a couple of years or so.
So with your permission, can I add something?
Sure.
So adding to what Mr. Ashwani is saying, unlike other industries, if you look at the aerospace industry, there's a lot of learning which goes into before even you can make a part. So other industries you can pick up very fast, but in aerospace industry, as I see, my experience is there's a lot of learning which goes. That itself takes away about 2-3 years of your time before you could start making any parts to aerospace companies.
And see, other than Tatas or big houses, if they're getting into something new, I haven't seen any supplier that has gone into something where the gestation period is 5 years. At the max 2 years, not beyond that. It won't make the business case.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you, sir.
May I also add something here? The gestation period is very high if you are developing your own product and putting into the market. There, the gestation period is very high. Certification of that is required. So it takes a long time. But if I may add to the question which Chandramouli has said, does Boeing pay for tooling? Does Boeing or Boeing systems pay during the FAI? And also, what is the payment cycle time when the parts are delivered? So that will help know a little better for smaller companies. What could be the payment cycle time?
So we pay for the tooling, and the tooling can be paid in advance. Okay, but the typical payment terms is now net 120. I know it's pretty. Some people it's pretty high. We don't have the tiered payments yet, like net 15 with a discount of 3% or 4%. So eventually we have seen certain cases where it goes to net 30, net 45 also. Okay. If there is a very serious reason to have progress payments, then these can be discussed as well. But I would tell you that the standard terms are net 120. If there is a deviation, it has to be justified and then approved. Okay, that's case to case. So that's what we are. But we do pay for the tooling. That's called NRE in our terminology.
Same.
So the non-recurring is basically that gets paid in advance, So that's how it typically works.
There is another general feeling that Boeing opportunity is not trickling down to very small companies, MSMEs who are already into aerospace, doing something in aerospace. What can be done for them?
So again, as I said, see, I'll just give you some numbers. Out of 300 suppliers, 71 are MSMEs in the Boeing fold. The issue is that the MSMEs think they need to be tier 1 to Boeing. Okay, I highly recommend that MSMEs start with the tier 2 status. It'll be if you have to make, and again, I'll ask a counter question. If you have to make 55 planes a month, and you have to churn out the parts at that pace, how will MSMEs be able to cope up with it as a direct supplier? Okay.
Yeah.
See, having ambition is good, but the ability to deliver also, we have to be realistic. So I always tell the MSMEs to be the tier 2s first. Okay. Unless you're, investing in such a way that you're ready as a tier 1, which is very, very few cases. And that happens mainly in the machining or special process or sheet metal or a fab kind of an industry, not beyond that. So I would say step 1, you have to define what you are, like what you want to do after 5 years, 10 years. If you are in the machining space, let's pick an example. How many machining suppliers do we have in aerospace here? Somebody wants to get into machining. There are hundreds of suppliers. Hundreds of suppliers and hundreds with very good setup in machining and all. So who do you go to? All are MSMEs. So if we need 55 sets a month, we don't say we'll go to 10 suppliers with 5 each.
Okay.
We go to suppliers who are able to supply volume, right? And that can happen when you grow over a period of time, keep adding, investing, and so forth. And I'll tell you, SimTools, MSME, they've gone big. SASMOS, I don't know how many people know SASMOS, Genser group. They have become very big with us. Rosel, Texas, MSME, they've become big with us. But they've grown over a period of time. It has not happened like all of a sudden. It's happened over a period of 8-10 years. So you have to start small and then get bigger.
I want to share one example. Of course, some questions can come, but one example of a different kind of model of supply chain, more granular. And that supply chain was able to supply 50 aircraft sets per month. What we had done was, there was a supplier in one part of India which was doing only machining. Then that part will come for heat treatment in Bangalore. Then it will go to Chennai for a special entity. Then it will go back for some, what is that called, electrochemical deburring at a very another place. And then it will go for short peening somewhere else in Belgaum. And finally, now these were very, very small companies. So what is happening is supply chain is getting coordinated or consolidated at a very low level, but delivery finally happening. So what happens is we connect 5 or 6 suppliers, which some of the OEMs can insist that the first company which does machining should have all the facilities with them under their roof. So this kind of experimentation where we involve more number of people, it makes the system a little more complicated. Don't know what are a concept of extended enterprise, whether such things can be experimented and can happen.
Yeah. So see, you have to go one level deeper. Okay. A lot of suppliers have vertical integration, which means most of the capabilities in-house. Some people go outside, which is a better model.
In-house is a better model. I think I can cite the example of Aegis Aerospace, where what they have done is in Bhargava, they have taken that SEZ zone, about 200 acres, and they have invited suppliers to come and set up their unit there with a guaranteed order for the year, and they also have a stake in that company. The Aegis Aerospace have the stake, so they were able to. Yes, we were able to create this ecosystem within the same space. There is no problem about logistics. There's no problem about supply. Everything is in-house. I think they are also working with Boeing, if I'm not mistaken.
Aegis has a machine shop. They have a special processing, which is a JV with Michelin. They have a fabrication, which was earlier a JV with Saab. They have everything, as you said. But let's go back to the basics, right? Why a vertical integration is better or the other way around? So the argument in favor of doing outsourcing is, if it is not your core competence, you'll end up adding cost. So others can do it better, so you may allow them to do it better. The argument in favor of vertical integration is, number one, you have control on your supply chain. So if cost is not the primary driver, if it is quality delivery control on resilience is the driver, then vertical integration becomes important. I'll also give you an example. We also source fasteners from India, and I thought fasteners can be done by anybody, so we just have to go, and it's a low-ended work. We are having more struggle in qualifying fasteners in India. Okay. Now it starts with, and I'll tell you why I'm talking this. If you do the costing of the fastener, okay, raw material to machining to special process to transportation and all, if you have to transport a fastener to some other place for heat treatment, you will never be competitive because it translates to $0.12 per fastener, for example, in the costing. And if you're not vertically integrated, you will probably not be able to sell those kind of parts to us. Okay, so you get a better control on the cost if it's vertically integrated, right? So most of the suppliers are going that way. We do have cases where we have taken parts in India, where the parts are going outside of India for special process. Okay, I don't know if Wipro is on the call. Wipro knows what I'm talking about. We took that part. We realized, and it was probably a miss, we realized that there's a special process that is not qualified in India. So we sent the part for 1 year outside, qualified the special process here, and that became like a fully localized supply chain. So I agree with you, but I don't think that model, sending it to 10 different places, work anymore. You lose control, you'll damage the parts, you'll not have control on the stability. So I personally don't believe in that model that it goes to 10 places for different things.
That is good, but the localization of some of the, or consolidation of some of the companies nearby
Yeah,
Will that
that's a
work?
cluster.
As
You're
a
talking about
cluster,
cluster,
yeah,
yeah.
clustering will work.
Yeah, cluster. So again, you have to cluster will work, yes, right? But who's going to be the prime? Which means somebody has to accept the order, right? And then give it to 10 players. You have to define who that parent is and why. That's it. Boeing has to make a decision. Who do we go to? And the second thing is, if you have too many cluster kind of a thing, I would like to see the cost part of it. I somehow conceptually it is good, but somewhere it'll not work. Either the cost element or managing the terms between different players and something will not work. But as a concept, I agree with you. And that will work if you're making an aircraft. Like you have somebody making the structure, somebody making the avionics and so forth. That kind of a cluster will probably work, but not on machine part, which goes through several things.
We have one
We have
question.
couple
right
of
from
hands, yeah.
Mr. Ravindra Saab. Sir Ravindra Saab, you can take the question.
I'm Ravindra Shah here. I have one question. How supplier integration with Boeing PLM system with respect to sharing of engineering data related to the product and maybe manufacturing also equipment toolings and etc. And second part of the question is that is there any constraint set by the Boeing for their supplier to use the same technology engineering software to work on the value addition part and supply back to the Boeing? Thank you.
So first question on sharing of data. See, we are both aerospace and defense. Okay, and defense, it's very restricted. Okay, unless you have all the trade control approvals, we don't share the data. And sharing the data is, to get the license is a 8-month cycle, 7 to 8 month cycle. So you have a reason planning in advance before we do that. In commercial, it is a little more relaxed. Okay, so depending on what we are pursuing with the supplier, we are able to share the data. If that was your question, is that the question?
But again, follow up. Then how supplier works on the part and product at their end and supply back to their. They need to have that.
Yeah. So
it's a portal.
we have a portal, a Boeing portal through which all this happens. And so we run proposal training and different trainings throughout the year. So if a new supplier gets in a system, see, every year we conduct maybe we get 30 odd new players in the room and tell them how this works. Okay. So I have people in my team, in fact, Ganpati's team, who do this every year. We have a supplier quality group that conducts training on all the special processes, what the approval requirements and so forth. So that is an ongoing process. I mean, those kind of training back to the suppliers. And there's a refresher also, because suppliers forget how people change. So we do refresher trainings also. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, my question was that Boeing provide their access-based control with your existing product lifecycle management technology and tools based on what access you want to give the supplier, or you create a separate web-based portal where you dump the data and from there the supplier picks up the data. So what way it is being done in terms of, because change management and the getting the real-time CAD data or engineering drawing data is very, very important when manufacturing a product. So I'm just trying to get.
Okay, you want to answer that? Let's hear Rakesh on his experience. I mean, they do it day in and day out.
Mr. Sir, whenever a supplier gets on board Boeing, so you'll get registered for their online portal. They have their own portal called as ExoStar, wherein all the data, whatever is required, is available there for that particular supplier. It is restricted. Like you are asking whether everything can be accessed, the answer is no. Only what is relevant to that particular supplier, that access will be provided. And then you can access like your engineering drawings or what is the demand, what is the schedule, delivery dates, including your quality ratings, delivery ratings, all that can be viewed through this portal. Yeah. So they have their own portal. It is not that somebody sends through mail. No data is shared over mail. It's only some mail some communications related to how we process, do, or things like that. Those things will be on mail. Otherwise, all these data, which are like the IP, it's on their portal called as ExoStar. And each program has their own portals. Like if you say 787, Boeing 787 has their own portal. In the sense, you cannot access 787 program if you are doing for some other program. So it's a very restricted and structured way of approach to the data from Boeing.
Okay, thank you. I come with a automotive background with 30 years. I'm managing the entire product life cycle. So one small question, you spoke about the virtual reality being adopted at Boeing. So I would like to understand, is it in the manufacturing area or design area, or what level of implementation it is area and which domain?
So it's getting active in manufacturing. So I'll give you one example. We do a lot of structures here, and some of the suppliers had problem in the painting. Okay, which appears to be a simple process. So how do you train the new people on the painting? So there are two suppliers. If you want to probably go and see, one is DTL, other is Mahindra. They have this software which is like a virtual reality driven. So you can put a person with a gun, painting gun in the room, and you're able to train the person on the same job profile that you'll see in the shop floor. So the workmen are trained in the room, in the manufacturing area, before they're taken to the shop floor. And this helps because there's some areas which are not accessible, right? You can't experiment this on the job because you'll mess it up, right? So you experiment this in the virtual reality world and then take it to the shop floor. Pretty effective. I mean, it's something that people have picked over the last 6-7 years. You'll see more of training in particular happening in the virtual world.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm aware of this. I'm working for the last 15 years in this domain only. Thank you.
We have one. Murali Krishna. Murali, can you unmute and say, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Mr. Ashwin. Nice to hear from you. I am Murali from Essilor Luxottica. We are the lens people. I had a question. One is on, you were talking about 120 days credit limit, but there is a rule in the sector,
MSME.
I mean, the government, MSME should be paid within 45 days.
Yeah, those are exceptions. I mean, see,
Exceptions.
yeah, so we follow, see, again, those, if you go back to, I mean, if you look at the arguments there, those are primarily applicable for Indian companies doing Indian projects. So those are governed by the Indian law, right? The contracts that we're talking about is the TBC contracts. But TBC means coming from the US side of it. So there have been arguments like what is applicable here, but we go, I mean, some of the contracts we have signed go with the MSME rules in India. But I'm saying technically it's not the way it is interpreted. No.
Yeah, I think you are perfect. For the imported goods which you are sending back, I don't see any issue. But if you are buying from India and if you are supplying to US or anywhere, I think that is to be adhered. Because we are also, when we buy from Indian origin, it will be challenged. And we got communication from the government also. So there should not be any delay in payment.
Yeah, we follow that, Yeah,
yes.
We follow the governing laws very strictly.
Fantastic. One more question on the your experience, because you reached 99.9%, which is nominally the great achievement, because it is a very important airline. You cannot run in Six Sigma level because aircraft will crash. So I just wanted to know more about that, because your experience is our learning.
So how did we? The question is, how did we achieve
99.9%?
So see,
Yes.
I have my team, one of my team members sitting here, so he can tell you how we manage it. And some of you will not agree with what I'm going to tell you. See, you've got to be the biggest pessimist on the earth to manage this, right? You have to think through what could go wrong. And I drive people crazy because, see, you have to work on the gut feel at times. And my team will tell you that what percentage of time I'm right?
Most of the time.
Almost 100% of the time, what I say is this is going to happen after 6 months happens, right? So you got to predict things. Somewhere you can go wrong too. I mean, I'm not saying that everything. You have to plan in advance. Okay. The issue is with the mindset of people in India. And I'll tell this very candidly. Okay. When you make a schedule, you'll say, oh, there's plenty of time. And if things start slipping, you'll say there's a lot of buffer there. When you go to the end, people will say, now I can't do this much work in the time that we have. Okay. Or what can I do if there's a labor strike? Or what can I do if there's a transportation issue? Are these known issues in India or they're not known issues in India? I think the single biggest driver is unless you prove. So point number one, when you're qualifying a product, unless you prove, you show me that you can do it much ahead of the timeline. And then unless you get stability proven by statistical control, you're just telling me that you're the mercy of God. So most of the suppliers in India have worked with us and supported what's happening, right? Second is there's something called Plan B. Okay, so we have some Plan B in place in most of the cases, right? You got to balance it out, like what you declare as Plan B and what you follow versus. I think the answer to your question is more like a discipline and thinking proactively, which a lot of suppliers do not do here.
True. So we also experienced, because we are EOU and we do 1,500 shipments a day, the exports basically, because these are the lenses, D+2 service we have to provide. So we had a lot of challenges. The suppliers' attitude, like forwarders. So we had an issue with the forwarders. DHL and UPS were very, very much restricted, but we used the DSV, which is a panel pinna, who were able to deliver the goods on time every day with another day of transport. So it is depending upon the people's attitude also, where okay, let us do it. So that is also very important factor, I feel. Even though
you and I, as people from India, we always try and sell that Indian suppliers are the best, right? I'll give you an example on similar lines like you. We make some very big cabinets out of India. We booked a flight space to carry 7 cabinets together, and flight is expensive. The freight forwarder, I'm not going to name them, they were picking 2 cabinets versus 7 and putting them in that huge space and air shipping it. So the cost to us was 3 times than what we had predicted, right? There was not a check in the system because they were producing invoice and we were paying it. Now, what happens with this? One, this is not good work ethic, right? You're not meeting what you promised to customer. 2, at some point of time, the landed cost will go up and you'll be priced out. Okay. So unless you see, this whole supply chain game is about value proposition to start with, then staying competitive, then delivering, then rate ramp, in Boeing aerospace world, rate ramp is very important. And then managing end-to-end, including logistics, right? So it starts from the pre-award, goes all the way up. And where people falter is in one of these areas. And then people say, oh yeah, what can I do? And that's the area where we as Indians need to be a little more cautious, because we can do things, but we falter. So we have 50 people. I mean, one of the reasons is because we want to see where we can help. We have people at Sansera also, right? Not that we don't trust them, but there's some problems created by Boeing also. I'll be honest with you.
Some people had sent a few questions in advance.
Yes.
We can pick up some as quick fire round from here.
Sure.
What is the ramp up plan of Boeing? Today it is about 1 billion. How does it go up?
The number of aircrafts per month is.
For number of aircrafts per month, yeah.
So we would go all the way up, and I'll tell you what's there in the public. We will go all the way up to 55 to 57 a month, right?
Yes, yeah.
We're doing about 28 to 30 right now. So there's a huge ramp up in stages which is coming up.
Upcoming new projects in India, anything new?
Yes, I mean, this year so far, and let this be another guess for the people. How much of new awards do you think would have put in Indian suppliers from Jan to today's what, 30th of May? In dollars, how many dollars worth of new awards we would have brought in?
You mean the contract?
Yeah.
400 million USD. Oh, my guess is 700 million USD.
You've talked to him, right?
No. 700 million USD.
Yeah. So we placed $700 million so far. So in terms of new projects, at the beginning of the year, and I'll tell you the big ones, we moved the first 767 shelf assembly from Boeing internal production to a supplier in India. And then in March, we announced that we will be setting up a passenger to freight conversion line at GMR in Hyderabad, right? That has not happened ever. There was no need for us to do it in India, but we got it here. Okay. We will be going into, and I'm just telling you future state now. We should be doing some tubes and ducts here. We continue to grow, of course, structures, and some of you would know we're doing vertical fin. We just delivered the 737 inlet outlet barrel, which go outside of engine. We are doing the fan cowl, 737 fan cowl, which is again the bigger engine cover. That is happening here. We will be bringing some systems work here. System means design and manufacture, primarily electronics. We have at least 20 new projects lined up, and I can't share more because we need to go through approvals before we announce. But we have almost 20 major projects lined up for India, new projects.
700 million. Okay. So 700 million is equivalent to equal to how many equivalent aircraft? Maybe 4. So there is offtake of about 4 aircraft, and we have placed order for 500 aircraft. So when are we closing the gap?
Yeah, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I have
There's a lot to come in. That's what is the message.
Yeah, well, here's the deal with him. Okay, I'm finding a deal with him right now. I have the checkbook to place purchase orders. Show me the suppliers and the value proposition. I'll place it right now.
I think
We are going. See, we are pretty strong in India on the structures, and structures doesn't mean the big one. In our definition, in vertical fin is like a semi-complex, right? We don't do fuselage and all that here. We don't have capability here today, unless somebody invests. We have not done systems enough. I mean, Collins does a few things and a few other suppliers, but we're doing that in pockets. Okay, we don't manufacture engine here. So in the bigger scheme of things, there are, we call it addressable. So today, if we have to say that the following capability exists, how much of an award we can place in India? Unless we say that you go ahead and invest and then we'll place that. And that's dollars you won't get for smaller parts. Dollars you get for bigger structures, So we don't have, we're not ready to that extent, but we are taking suppliers up the learning curve.
So do you think there is a massive need to develop more and more suppliers
in the right areas? So if you develop more suppliers in machine, help. Right? So I would say we need more suppliers who can design from a specification and manufacture it in systems. So if you have suppliers who have the capability, to design systems, which could be power, actuation, avionics, flight management, cabin management, cyber, all those things. If you have that ability to pick up the spec and design and manufacture, then you should contact us. We need more suppliers in that area.
Yeah, so Bhargava, I have something to add. I must thank you for your time and the patience in handling all of these questions. You made it very interactive. For a novice like me who doesn't know the subject much, I want to ask you a big question. Subject matter is very simple, that it's all about the supply chain disruptions that have hampered the industry. If that be it, what is the extent of delays that happens in this industry at the moment, or what is the standard delays, if at all it happens? Because I have been hearing in various press reports at least that there has been delays, some cancelling orders and whatever else. What is the extent of delays that have happened in terms of months, and what is the impact of that? And then also I have another subsequent question, which is absolutely layman. Thank God accidents are few and far between. And as and when that happens, for example, even a MAX 367. So are the suppliers put to any kind of fault? Are there any penalties that is taken? Are they de-dosed? What is it that happens? When these are all things that is possibly very sensitive, you may not be able to answer. But if you can, not record it. Nothing is recording.
It's okay. It's okay. People should know. No, so see, the delays are running into months. Okay, it depends on what parts. It's even smaller part can be like 1 year later.
I'm talking about the
Aircraft. Finished,
Yeah, delivery of the aircraft.
Yeah, it's a few months, not, it won't get into years and so forth, right? What happens is you try and recover, but I don't know if you heard about the latest issue we had with Spirit. You know, on the vertical, they had used some process. When a supplier notifies us of some issue, then the issue, see, unlike some of the other industries, because it's safety critical, you go into the whole root cause analysis and the impact analysis, right? And then notify FAA and all that happens. So if there's one issue, it pushes you back by 4 or 5 months. But then, of course, I mean, there are some recovery mechanism in place, and sometimes it doesn't hurt. Like Max was one extreme thing where everything kind of stopped on the Max thing, right? So that's one driver. Now, your question was on Max, right? What happens when we...
What a overall industry perspective as far as delays are concerned? How many months can that be?
8-9 months up,
That's
up to that.
within tolerable limits.
It's not. I mean, is it acceptable? No. I mean, customers lose a lot of money, right? Airlines is a business, we get penalized too, right? Because
we have been able to restructure the agreements.
that I would not know 100%, but with some customers, but we paid a lot of penalties too. And this is in the media, so I can tell you that we ended up paying penalties. Because see, airlines was all about losses. I mean, if you don't supply, people go through losses, right? So yeah, they were like, and our salespeople can answer it better, but yeah, there were a lot of penalties, right? So that was the impact of 737 MAX. Now, do we penalize suppliers? Yes and no. It depends on what kind of an impact it is, right? But generally, in our terms and conditions, we require suppliers to have insurance, right? Insurance cover. The bigger issue is the brand issue. Okay. The issue is, see, one is monetary. So you can impose terms and condition. You may let this go, depending on how severe it is, right? But the impact is more on the reputation and the brand. Okay. Now, what we do with the suppliers, you know, we can't inspect every part, right? So you have to depend on supplier processes also at times. But if they're not following the right process, at the minimum, they're out of Boeing supply base. But you can't replace suppliers overnight. So the first attempt is to fix the issue. if you don't do it over a period of time, you don't have any other choice but to let the suppliers go. But generally, we fix the issue and then see if any other action is needed.
What is the maximum? Sorry, I'm making a monologue.
No, no,
There are no questions that side.
Yeah.
What is the total number of components that go into the making of an aircraft?
Millions. Millions, not thousands, but millions. Now, I wouldn't point to a specific this thing, but it's in millions, you know. One aircraft.
India.
Yeah.
All of them to put it together.
Yeah,
I was in Toyota factory. Yeah.
that's a complication in supply chain. If you miss one part, you can't
go on.
Yeah. And in a line, when you move in a line, then you also have to see now if you'll go from one station to the other one. If one part is missing, can you actually go and then fit this later on? So that creates a, more cycle. And if more uncertainty thing. That's a challenge. I mean, and that's why I'm saying inventory is required for certain parts. The issue is not inventory or an intent to have inventory. Suppliers are not able to deliver.
In terms of number of units produced, either monthly or yearly, what is the units produced with Boeing, sir?
Boeing today, we're going in terms of all the commercial airlines we're about, I think, 40, 45 a month.
40, 45?
A month.
45 aircrafts are done.
Yeah. All put together,
And they would ramp up to 55.
Every day, 1.5 aircraft.
Yeah.
We have 787.
And Air India, what is the their place number of
290.
And so, in terms of the overall composition with respect to most of the international airlines, where would Air India stand? Now, we think that number is very big, and we post in headlines that yes, this is the number. But is that really of consequence to an organization like you or Airbus? Or?
It is big order. I mean, it's it rates amongst the top. I'll say 4 or 5 this year. Yeah. We had Ryanair that gave 300, but otherwise we have like 50, 60, 100 kind of thing. This 290, which is big. And India needs 2,200 aircrafts in the next 10 years. But we think 2,200.
2012.
We think 1,800 will be required in the next 18 months.
What is the numbers that's running on the?
If you look at the deals and all,
What is the number of aircraft is already flying in India?
About 600, close to 600.
Plus 2,000 kilometers. So there'll be traffic signals there also.
Yeah.
There's a huge demand in aerospace. This is the best time to be in aerospace supply chain. But then entry is difficult. But when you enter, coming out is also difficult because you don't leave. We haven't exited any supplier here in India.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatt.
So we have one more question like this, of course, from my side as well. See, post-COVID, as we see a lot of challenges, I think one of the biggest challenge today is the raw material, mainly like the aluminum and special alloy steels and the bought-out items, including the sealants. So,
Sure.
So India now, I see that the aerospace industry has matured enough where there's a sizable quantity. So anything being done from the OEM to see that we localize these things in the country?
So there is a very strong intent to localize raw material. We have gone past from nothing to something. Okay. Midhani for VDSI parts, I think they can do it, but Midhani is pretty low in production to even cater to. Their annual production will not be even like few days of requirement. What is happening is some of the forging houses have started using some of the Indian material houses. Some qualifications are going on. I can't tell you more beyond that, but we'll probably be able to address in pockets, but it needs a lot of investment.
Yeah. Where what we are seeing is the challenge is the machining capacity is available, but like other things like the sealants or paints shortages are really crippling the whole ecosystem here. So we have to seriously look at how to build this.
Yeah, see, we need to have a scale. Okay, the investment is so high, you can't close the business case without a scale. Who'll bet the scale on you without seeing what you produce? So some of the products have very high entry barriers. You can't get into something without putting a big bet and taking huge risk, right? So this is one of them, and I think the forging will go the same way. Other questions, please?
So any more question?
There's one, and no.
420 now.
So basically, what is the message for to grow? You want design companies to start doing manufacturing, and manufacturing companies also to do design.
We are looking for suppliers who can design and manufacture systems. And the definition of systems is something on power, which could be conversion, distribution, storage, and so forth. It could be avionics, it could be actuation, flight management system, cabin management system, cyber, PCBAs or control cards. These are the areas where if you can build from a spec into a full product and take it all the way to manufacturing. You should not waste even a single minute and contact me.
But then I will have a supplementary question on this. There are some avionics units like SSFDR has been ITSO'd. That is, it has got Indian TSO. But will Boeing accept it, or what more work has to be done to accept such LRUs or the systems?
See, our requirement is to Boeing spec. That's why I'm saying the requirement is to pick our specification and convert that to a design. How will you prove that any equivalent product is same as what we are looking for? Very difficult. And in the systems world, it's a flight part, so you got to be very careful. We can look at that. So what that would do is, even if it's not like one-on-one, it'll help us understand whether you can do from that for our product or not.
So it will be produced to Boeing spec, and acceptance will be by Boeing.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
It's good. I think we have to run. We have to go a long way.
You have to grow in technology. A lot of people, there was a question, will you make aircraft here? Okay. What do you do first? Do you do aircraft assembly first, or do you build the ecosystem for parts?
Ecosystems.
How much of value add is the aircraft assembly? 6-7%, right? But optically, it looks very exciting that you're building an aircraft here, but you don't have an ecosystem here. What will you do? Import parts and just assemble here. So Boeing is chasing the ecosystem first, and then you talk about building aircraft here.
How far are the governments of India responsible to develop the infrastructure and support the ecosystem? Which state is ahead? Let us talk that way.
Which state?
Which state do you think is ahead? Is it only Karnataka or Maharashtra and Pune?
I think two are doing pretty good. Karnataka and Telangana. Telangana is moving. Was there benefits, but Telangana is a little more faster in the investments. We dealt with K.T. Ramarao quite a bit, and he's very aggressive.
How is it that Tamil Nadu doesn't seem to have taken much of a...
There is a defense corridor there, but it's not. See, Tamil Nadu historically have suffered from power shortage, right? So, in my previous role, we always had trouble there, with power outage and, right? But I think we have suppliers in Tamil Nadu. We have good suppliers over there. I met the Chief Minister last year, along with one of the suppliers. But the pace versus Karnataka and Telangana is pretty slow. But they're coming up. There are a lot of new things coming up there.
Aeropack engineers. Salem is one of the suppliers.
Sundar's,
Yeah.
he was the one who took me to the chief.
So this chief minister.
Good. So thank you very much for taking time to,
Thank you.
yeah, and as a token of our appreciation for you to have come here. The right thing.
Sorry, anyway, you're just.
Nice
Nice to see you.
to see you.
अभी देखिए अरे आइए सर चलिए हम आपके साथ
Thank you.
can match you on timing thing is up.
Yeah, the backlast.
No, this is for the
Yes, supply
posting
chain.
into WhatsApp.
Thank you.
And one more for
Plan B.
Mr. Hebba. No, we'll pack it up you. Thing is up. Right.
Sorry, sir.
Sir, you have to. हाँ, ले लीजिए। आइए सर ना, आइए।
पता ना अच्छा
हाँ, लेना। Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now at least you should.
इधर है।
What's up, बैठिए।
So group 4.
Again.
I tried to some early, but I had another meeting which I fixed, so.
We came to your facility without when you were away.
The green tea.
And that's triggered a lot of interest in the forging part. Yeah. Peter has gone back and.
So you visited our plant level.
We will go. I mean, he's been telling. So I'm heading to US next this Thursday, Saturday. I'll be back here 2 weeks and then.
Vote of thanks. But you came to the plant, machining.
Yeah, yeah. You can I mean, like it looks a little empty. There's a dispute.
It is empty. You usually orders.
I mean, space versus the number of machines.
Yeah, I think we got people are there. Vote of thanks is pending.
Yeah, vote of thanks you can. So certainly have this.
Okay, sitting or standing?
Sitting.
So on behalf of BCIC and on all your behalf, all the members' behalf, we have pleasure in thanking Ashwani Bhargava. He came on time, before time, and he was ready to speak to us, shared lots of things, lots of insights, and thank him once again on our behalf. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now since is here, all of you